Hello, my friends, hello, and welcome once again to stately Vaughan Manor, where Roger and I have returned. And today we're going to be talking about things to come on my Dopey channel. So this, going forward, will be something I'll be doing in the beginning of the month. We're a week late now, but from now on, this startling new feature will be happening in the beginning of the month. And in this video, we'll be talking about the books that I will be reading in the near future, so it's kind of a TBR thing, but also the thrilling videos that Roger and I will be doing in the near future. So, yeah, let's get into it. What am I going to be reading in the very near future? And actually, let's back up and talk about what I'm reading now, because I'm almost done with this month's selection of Roger's Cheap Old Book Club, the incredible book club invented by Roger, where every month we are reading a book that is available in the public domain, which means you can get every single book off of Project Gutenberg and download it for free if you want, and join us along every month. And this month's book is The New Arabian Nights. I've only got that much left. I had to stop reading it so that Roger and I could do this video. Almost done. I've really enjoyed this book. I love Robert Louis Stevenson. And this is a book of short stories, a collection of short stories. Of course, all of these short stories are available in the complete stories of Robert Louis Stevenson. There are a few complete editions of his stories, and all of this is in there. But this original collection is kind of hard to find unless you download it from Project Gutenberg. And at least 3 of us that I know of that are reading this book are reading it in volumes that are over 100 years old. So, because newer editions of this are scarce. You can get some print-on-demand ones, or like I said, you can download this book for free. But really, I've really enjoyed it. Very Victorian, but Victorian fun. It's cool. This is a cool volume of stories. So that's what I'm reading now, but almost done with it. As for comics, you know I'm always reading comics, and I'm reading Superman every day for my Superman challenge. So I'm still reading this. This is volume 2 of The Man of Steel, which was John Byrne's revamp of the Man of Steel of Superman from the 1980s. So this was John Byrne's revamp, and I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it, even though not all of the changes that he made I think were wise. But I'll be talking more about this in the near future. So that's what I'm reading at this very second. But like I said, I'm almost done with New Arabian Nights, and so it's time to go back to Edgar Rice Burroughs. So I will be reading this next. This is Edgar Rice Burroughs' Thuvia Maid of Mars. So this is the 3rd volume in the Barsoom series, also known as the Martian series. This particular volume calls it the Martian Tales of Edgar Rice Burroughs, also known as the John Carter of Mars series. So the Mars books by Burroughs. This is the 4th volume, and it's interesting. So the first 3 books in this series all starred John Carter. They are sometimes known as the John Carter trilogy, the first 3 books in the Martian series, because they basically all tell one story: how John Carter arrived on Mars and how he eventually became a figure of power on this planet. He became the warlord of Mars. This book, however, the 4th book, focuses on John Carter's son. Thuvia, Maid of Mars. Thuvia is the woman for whom Carthoris, John Carter's son, is in love. And there is a Banth. Thuvia can control Banths. Banths are Martian lions. So I remember this book being really, really good, but it's been years and years since I've read it. I've read the first 3 books a few times, in the Martian series. But it's been a long time since I've read this. I don't even recall when the last time I read this was. I've read this at least twice though. But I was probably in my early 20s when I read this, which was, it was a while ago. So yeah, looking forward to getting back to this. Edgar Rice Burroughs and the Edgar Rice Burroughs deep dive. So that's going to be cool. So that's what I'm reading next. As for what comes after that, now I was going to read this for Steve Donohue's book club that he does every month. SPQR, A History of Ancient Rome by Mary Beard. This is actually a really good book. I read this once before, but I thought, it's for Steve's book club. I thought, I'd jump on board and read that again. It's worth a reread. I highly recommend this book, but I'm not going to really have time because it's not a tiny book. It's 500 something pages. So, it's not gigantic, but I just can't fit it in this month, since a big reread. Sorry, Steve, but I do recommend this book to anybody who's interested in ancient Rome. I'm not sure it's the best starting point for reading histories of ancient Rome, but it might be. It starts oddly in that, anyway, it's a good book though. So, read it. It's good. SPQR for Steve's book club. There you go. But what I'm actually going to be reading next is this book. It's Stephen King's Different Seasons, which I've been talking about reading forever. Now, a while ago, seems like a long time ago now, I created the Read Every Book By Challenge, and I spun a wheel with a bunch of authors on it that were recommended by viewers. And Stephen King came up. And Stephen King, who's written like 9 billion books. So off I set on the challenge to read every single book by Stephen King in publication order, which I've screwed up a little bit, but that's okay. I'll be back on track with this book, Different Seasons. But I've taken some time off from this project. I didn't really intend to take this much time off. It's been months since I've read. The last Stephen King book I read was Creepshow, actually, which was a graphic novel. It was a comic book that came out along with the film Creepshow. The film with that great performance by the brilliant actor Stephen King. Stephen King, man, wow, that was awesome. I'm not sure why he didn't win an Academy Award for that, but he was snubbed. But it's been a while since I've read Stephen King, but I'm going to get back into this, reading every book by Stephen King in earnest with this book right after Thuvia. Now, this is a fair-sized book. How many pages is this? Let's take a look. It's 507 pages. Oh, look, there's an advertisement for Creepshow. That's awesome. So, it's a fair-sized book, and I know it's one of his best books. And I'm thinking, did I read this book? I'm not sure that I have. I kind of thought that I read this when I was a teenager at some point. But looking back, I'm like, if I did read this, I sure don't remember much about it. Other than the films that they made based off of the stories in this book. There are 4 novellas in here that have been published as separate books, I think, but I'm reading it all as one big book, as it originally was published. Stephen King's Different Seasons. And you know what? I have to say, I really enjoyed the books I've read from Stephen King. I know people have different feelings about Stephen King, but overall, I think most people enjoy his work. And his 80s stuff, which I'm into now, is probably his best stuff, right? His 80s stuff. And so I'm reading Different Seasons. I think the next Stephen King book I'll be reading is going to be Pet Sematary, which I think is fantastic. I think Pet Sematary could be the best horror novel I've ever read. It's just a brilliant, brilliant book as far as horror goes. We'll see if I still feel that way, though. Again, it's a book I haven't read in quite some time, and I think that one comes after this. So Different Seasons Looking forward to it. Going to be reading that. Now, how much time will I have this month after reading this? I don't know. But if I have, like, say, if this takes 2 weeks, I might have some time. And if I do, I'm going to go right back to the deep dive with Edgar Rice Burroughs to Pellucidar, which is the sequel to At the Earth's Core. Pellucidar, the world within the earth, has a little sun in there, right in the middle of the earth and around. It's like whole continents and oceans and stuff going on inside the earth. You didn't know that. You know, you should have studied geology more closely. And then you would know all about Pellucidar, because, yeah, that's the world within the earth. Full of cavemen and dinosaurs, as you would expect, and other strange creatures, you know, ape men and all kinds of stuff. All that goes on in Pellucidar, and At the Earth's Core is a very enjoyable Edgar Rice Burroughs book, one of my favorites, but if I'm remembering right, Pellucidar was even better. But it's, again, it's been a long time since I've read this. Look at that great Frank Frazetta cover. That's awesome. So Pellucidar probably will come after different seasons depending on how much time is left in the month. Because next month is May, and Horror Mayhem is happening next month, which is a reading event created by the Bookish Bryants. And in Horror Mayhem, it's all horror. But I really haven't heard too much about, you know, the weekly themes or anything. I'm not sure everything has been hammered out for it. But I do know that for the book, for Roger's Cheapo Book Club, we are reading The Three Imposters. The Three Imposters, which is kind of a fantasy horror novel, an episodic novel written by Arthur Machen. I have it in this volume, The Collected Fiction of Arthur Machen. I have The Three Imposters, the whole novel in here. And like I said, it's an episodic novel that has been kind of cut apart, and different parts of it have been published individually as single stories. But it was originally all part of a whole. It was originally all part of The Three Imposters. And I kind of deliberately chose it because it's a horror novel for Horror Mayhem, but also I placed it after The New Arabian Nights. Or Roger did. It's Roger's book club. It's after The New Arabian Nights we put it, Roger and I, because as far as the style of the thing, it's very much in the style of The New Arabian Nights. Just telling completely different and more horrific and strange stories. But very much written sort of like Robert Louis Stevenson, only it's Arthur Machen. Telling just ghastly tales, as you would expect from Arthur Machen. Again, The Three Imposters is available for free from Project Gutenberg. It's also available now in an Oxford edition of Arthur Machen, which is really good, or in this, or in different places. Certainly it's something that you'll be able to get for free for your e-reader or iPad or whatever. But I'll be reading it in this volume, The Three Imposters, and just creepy and strange and weird. Again, a book I haven't read in quite some time, but really looking forward to it, Arthur Machen. So I know I'll be reading that for Horror Mayhem, but otherwise I don't know what I'll be reading next month. I'll have to mull it over, and maybe I'll hear more if there are different themes for the different weeks. Maybe that'll help me choose what I'll be reading. Usually, this event focuses on shorter stuff, 250 pages or less. So that might help me choose what I'll be reading. But on the next fantastic edition of Things to Come, I'll be talking about Horror Mayhem and the things I'll be reading for that. So that's all the books. Now, what kind of videos are going to be coming up in the near future? Well, that's all very exciting as well. Tomorrow, Roger and I will be doing a video focusing on William Hope Hodgson. William Hope Hodgson. I have the Collected Fiction of William Hope Hodgson in these shiny volumes that look all nice. And William Hope Hodgson is an important figure in horror and weird fiction. But he's a guy that isn't talked about that often on BookTube, if ever. I'm sure somebody must have talked about William Hope Hodgson, but I don't hear him talked about that often. So we're going to be doing a video for tomorrow. Who was William Hope Hodgson, where we just talk about the author and some of his works and why his stuff is so important and influential. And I'll be rereading his stuff in these shiny volumes. All of his books in this series, the collected fiction of William Hope Hodgson, they're all available in paperback now. And I think they're print-on-demand paperbacks, so you should for sure be able to get a copy if you're interested in his work. This was published by Nightshade Books a number of years ago. So yeah, William Hope Hodgson for tomorrow. And then this Wednesday, it's Epic Comic Book Wednesday, and we will be talking, Steve and I, on Steve's channel and on my channel, we'll be talking about World's Finest again, only this time it's the Silver Age World's Finest, the original World's Finest. We'll be talking about this book because it was spectacular and awesome. Great comic book, The Silver Age World's Finest, so we'll be talking about this. In the future, I've got some cool stuff coming up from Epic Comic Book Wednesdays. I know you're also interested in comic books. For next week, it's going to be The Coming of Galactus, Fantastic Four Epic Collection Volume 3, The Coming of Galactus. This not only has the origin or the first story of Galactus, it also has the first appearance of the Silver Surfer, and it has just a bunch of other really great stuff, including this famous story, This Man, This Monster. I mean, there's just all kinds of really good stuff in this Epic collection. So we'll be talking about this next week. Following that, the week after, we're going to be going back in time and we'll be talking about Captain America, The New Deal. Captain America, The New Deal. And this is interesting because it came out right after 9/11. And when America was reeling, it was a strange time. And that is reflected very much in this story. It's an interesting story to look at now, so many years later. But yeah, we'll be talking about Captain America, The New Deal after that. So we've got some good stuff coming up on Epic Comic Book Wednesdays. This Thursday, Rudder and I will be talking about a new BookTube event that'll be coming up later in the year in July. Just kind of an early announcement of the event, talking about the event. Details will follow in the future, but just to let you know about the event and that it's actually going to be happening. That's happening on Friday. Next week, we've got a video coming out about Occult Detective Magazine, which is overdue. But I wanted to talk about William Hope Hodgson first, and there's a reason for that. But talking about Occult Detective Magazine next week. I don't know what else we're doing next week except for Epic Comic Book Wednesday. We'll figure it out. It's next week. That's like way far in the future. And I've yammered on long enough. So yeah, that's all for today. I'll catch you tomorrow. We'll see you next time.